Choice of the chosen, yeah. 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 Well, the people of the power meet the power of the people, then it changes every hour of the day. All you need is one man with his head in the sand to rise up and say, oh, with the regime of a beauty queen, you gotta come clean, cause you're a liar. But if you stand up and fight for the things that's right, then you'll find one day you'll start a fire. And when that flame burns, the people start to learn that's all you need to take you higher. Higher than the trees and the birds and the bees. It's the flame that we call desire, yeah. Choice of the chosen, yeah.
I would imagine that it's the camaraderie and the affinity with each other that made them the competitive unit that they were. The main differences were that was our first overseas trip, first World Series, and we're going into the unknown. So what we did was we went into softball diamonds with fenced, where we don't have any fences at home. We use wooden bats, whereas everybody else uses aluminium bats. There was the difference in the rules. Defensively, I was first base, so I had to play behind the line, and the third base played behind the line, so they were a couple of the differences. Plus, we had big crowds there at Mexico City, where the World Series was, 30,000 at our first opening game, so that was a bit of a wake-up call. Well, I was very proud. I was the captain of that team, so I threw my chest out a little bit further. And to win it at home, amongst your family and friends, was my sporting highlight in my life.
When I think back to 1982 when we won the World Series, prior to that point, the White Sox team had actually had a bit of a clean out in terms of bringing in new players and new and younger players like myself. And we were pretty green at that elite level, but it was definitely our teamwork. I would have to say that we probably weren't the most talented team that was selected at the time. But it was really, really apparent right from the very beginning that we gelled together as a team. There were no individuals. We were working really hard for each other, and people stepped up at different times to win a game. So it wasn't really any one person or individual that created that World Series title. It was truly a team effort, and that really came about by the team culture established by Ed Dollich, our coach of the time. Oh, hugely. In 1982 I was just a player and the captain of the World Series team, and really with no faults about a coaching career at all after that. I went to play for the New Zealand team right through to 1986, and it was when Ed shoulder tapped me to think about coaching, and to be honest I hadn't really thought of it as a career at all. But I've certainly learnt from Ed, and right to this very day I apply a lot of his coaching philosophies to my teachings as well. Ed Dollich was a coach ahead of his time. In that era there was no such thing as mental training or anything like that, but Ed practiced it without us actually knowing. And so through Ed and his coaching philosophy, and even to this day I still call on Ed to provide advice for me as the National Director of Coaching and also head coach of the New Zealand White Sox team. And he very willingly parts his advice, and whilst Ed has certainly moved on from coaching, what he says makes pretty good sense to me. So everything we applied in 1982 I apply now, and we're starting to see some really good results in the women's program as a consequence. Well, in 1978 in El Salvador, the previous placing for the White Sox team had been 9th place, and we went from 9th to 3rd and to a bronze medal. And it was a real eye-opener for us, to be honest. We had just moseyed along to that point, but it really was our coaching staff and the management that that pointed us in the right direction, and we had to look at what we had to do to be successful. And I remember back to that time, and it was almost a bit of a surprise that we were. And once we got the bronze medal, we got a bit of a taste of success and really believed that we were better than we thought we were. So, you know, from 1978, we got an awful lot of confidence. We got a lot of confidence from the team management as well too, and a belief in each other and a belief in the team. And from that 1978 team, we carried that through to 1982, because a large amount of players that were there in 78 were also there in 82. And I think it was just that true belief in each other and our teamwork and our, you know, everything just came together at that time.
The strength, well, again, like in any good international softball team, you need strong pitching, and we had that in Kevin Herlihy, Steve Jackson and Michael White. Excellent hitting, strong defence. But I think, to me, one of the strengths of that team was that, as it turned out, the inexperience of the team. Only 3 players, Kevin Herlihy, Jimmy Cotter and John Joyce, had actually ever been to a World Championship before. The other 14 players had not, yet they'd been involved in the international program for 4 or 5 years, and they just had this incredible self-belief, maybe a little bit of arrogance. You know, people the likes of Ian Stringer, Mike Nichols, they just believed that we were going to win this time, and with that attitude and solid performances, that happened. Yes, it is tough because for lots of various reasons. Number one, you're not getting the competition, you're out of season, and therefore you've got to try and replicate some way of at training over a period of time to be ready for competition games when you go to wherever country it is that you're going to be, the World Champs are going to be played in. If you can, and you probably need at least 15, 16 games to start finding some really good form. So it is difficult. I think what's been a plus though, especially for the males in the last 20 years, is the fact that many of them now do go to the Northern Hemisphere and play club softball in either Canada or the USA. And that's been a plus and a bonus for when selecting New Zealand teams out of season.
It's a question that we asked ourselves quite often, and it was a question that we were asked numerous times by people, especially in the States and Canada, where the 85 and 89 tournaments were held. And really the thing that we believed as the coaching staff at the time was around the fact that we had very much teams of incredibly talented individuals that had a marked team ethos. They certainly played for each other, and they played for, ultimately, as they used to tell us, the uniform they were wearing. But the thing that the teams we played used to ask us often was, where did we find kids, as they put it, who were so intense that no one could believe how a group of players in both teams, or both tournaments, able to come from behind and really overcome what were pretty strong odds against them, and just win it by being so intense and in the face of the opposition, if you like. So it was about the individuals that we had. It was certainly also about the climate of softball at the time in the country. We had players that were young, but were, I would say, top-class players in their own senior teams back home. And you only have to look at the names in 85 like Sorenson and Dean Rice to see that. Mike Roberts as a pitcher. And then in 89, Jared Martin, who was an addition to the team, a late addition to the team, but was arguably probably the guy that in the end won it for us. So it was about individuals, but it was certainly the team ethos that they had. The quality that both of them had was the fact that they were very, very strong individually. Both of them understood, and it was a thing I will say again, was at the time in the game, both of them understood defence and the importance of defence and how attack could certainly come back from defence. So even when we did get behind, we were behind because the runs that were scored against us weren't because of our play, but because of good play by the opposition. But then the thing they did have was the hitting, and we had some extremely good hitters in both teams, 85 and 89. 89 arguably, in my opinion, the better of the two teams. And one of the things that we had in 89 was a string of players who could put it together, from the likes of Jared, Steve Roberts, and we had what I would class as arguably the best player off the bench that I've ever coached, a young fellow at the time by the name of Glenn Roth. Probably the sort of advice I would have liked in 85 when I took out the first team was actually understand what you're going into and understand the opposition that you're likely to meet and the conditions that you're likely to be under. Any amount of practice can be done, but if you get to where you're going and you find that the circumstances are not what you're used to, or the situation is totally different than that you're used to in your match play at home, you're behind the eight ball. So my advice is certainly to find out what it is they're going into in the local conditions, and then while they're there, scout. Find out what the other teams can do and what they need to do against them, because from what I can understand, that's the thing that's cost us on numerous occasions in the last few series is the other teams knew what we could do, but we weren't particularly sure of what they could do.
Yes, definitely. I think the 96 team was overall probably one of the strongest teams that's ever been selected for the men's program. And one of the main reasons for that is, as I said earlier, that they had the opportunity now to play softball in the Northern Hemisphere out of the New Zealand season, and probably 70 to 80% of them do that, and that's a huge plus. Well, any successful team, you've got to have you've got to have very strong team dynamics. And 96 was no exception there. Everybody believed in each other. There was lots of competition for positions. Everybody wants to be in the starting lineup, especially when you get to a World Championship, but with a 17-person squad, that's not possible. So we created a competition between the various players and their positions that they were participating in. But we also, over a period of time, we developed our team values that regardless of who was playing, we must be supportive of each other and believe in each other. So while we developed competition, we also had to have a 100% support rate between each player and as a group. And also the fact that many of them also play against each other in the North American season, and also as in New Zealand, that they all know each other's strengths and weaknesses, especially the pitchers and the catchers, knowing the hitters. But we had to get our players to inform all of their New Zealand players of what they considered their strengths and weaknesses were, even though it was going to be perhaps detrimental when they played in club softball back in New Zealand. But this was achieved. So team camaraderie is crucial to have a successful team. Right now, it's very difficult for many sports because there are so many choices that kids have to play, and there's so many sports now we've just seen in the Olympics that have been very successful. And it's important for us to get back on the World Championship stage as winners, and so that we can promote the game throughout the country to our youth, and also for those who are participating in the team. It's important that they know that they are not just playing for themselves, they're playing for New Zealand, they're playing for the sport.
Oh, for me it was the World Championships in 1988 as a player, and that was the United States team. They were, in terms of talent, the best team I've ever seen. We finished second to them, having to beat them twice on the last day, beat them the first game, couldn't quite get across the line in the second game. And for me, I was bitterly disappointed for years after that, until I had the opportunity to reflect on what it is that we'd achieved and recognise that we'd actually done a pretty good job, because we were up against an outstanding side. Would be, to me, the coming of age of Marty Grant. Marty was always lived in the shadows of outstanding pitching and primarily Michael White and Chub Tangaroa over the years, and the opposition, certainly the big opposition, the US and the Canadians, would have viewed Marty as someone who wasn't strong mentally. So they thought that they could expose him, and Marty came through and was given the opportunity and came through. It was to be the most dominant pitcher at that World Series. Probably a couple of things. The first is that the players themselves were in a position to make more of a contribution to how the team was organised. So they took real ownership of the culture of the team. And the other part was that it was easily the best hitting team that I'd ever been associated with. So with that is that one of our themes for that particular World Series was about being relentless, about waves crashing onto a beach. Just never ended, and that was pretty much what our hitting lineup was like. So we wanted to get into a situation where the opposing pitcher was not worrying about the hitter that was in the box, but was stressing about the hitter that was actually on deck or the next one after that. No, not at all. For us, playing at home, we viewed it as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Back in 2004, we wouldn't have expected New Zealand to get another World Series in 2013, given that it had been 1976 since the last one was played in New Zealand. And what we focused on was that we'd proven to be pretty competitive when we're playing out of New Zealand. But this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to play in New Zealand in front of the people that mattered most to us, which was friends, family, and New Zealanders. Well, I don't think I'd have the jobs or the opportunities I've had in sport with Spark or at New Zealand Rugby if it wasn't for my experiences in softball. So the answer to that question is yes. Can I, rattle off a few areas? Probably around the way that we organised the Black Sox in particular, the way that we created our approach to planning, the way that we had the players taking real ownership of the environment that we created. Those sorts of things have certainly been transferable across all sports.
They've got to remember that they were the best team in the world for so long. They lost their mojo in 2009 because they didn't get on so well together. So they've got to get that back, which I think they'll do easily. And we just want them to win at home in front of their friends and our friends.
Oh look, for the Black Sox, this is your opportunity to win another world title. These opportunities don't come along very often, as you well know. And I truly believe that you also have the team management in place. You have great coaches. You've got great leadership within your team, led by Reece Castley, who I really admire and respect. And my message to you is go for it, make the most of the opportunity, and good luck for you.
But probably my message to the 2013 Black Sox is something that may not go down very well with some, and that's to forget what's gone before. Don't let what has happened in terms of an incredibly successful period of play and success at international tournaments, both the World Championships and other international tournaments, by the Black Sox. Don't let that get in the way. Replicate the sort of things they did, replicate the culture, try and play to the same level, but go out and make your own history. Don't let what was done before be the thing that guides you into, in fact, believing that you're unbeatable and letting someone catch up on you.
Oh, look, all the very best. Enjoy the occasion. They only come around every 4 years. It goes very quick. You may only get the opportunity to play on one of them, but really, really make the most of it. Have fun, enjoy it, and really believe in each other, play for each other, and you're going to get the support of the whole nation right behind.
Yeah, it's again, it's just to obviously enjoy the opportunity to play at home. I don't think there's anything better than winning at home, and it just comes down to be really clear on doing your job. And again, if I reflect on any team that's been successful in world sport, they've been excellent at doing the basics. So the message for the guys in terms of, again, is do the basics. Do your job, and clearly in terms of trust that the guy next to you is going to do his job, and then it's a pretty easy approach, enjoy it.
Yeah. Choice of the chosen, yeah.